time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand with your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
And welcome back to another round of Brandy. We hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas with friends, family, loved ones, and that you're getting excited for the new year, because that's right around the corner as well. And actually, speaking of the holidays, this episode is a little different due to the holidays and scheduling and being in the office, out of the office. So this episode is actually just me. And, Scott and I weren't able to record this episode because I'm taking my family to Disneyland during the times that Scott and I normally record. So kind of threw a wrench in the works. But I'm sure I will come back with some awesome, awesome stories and feedback from Disneyland and kind of just be able to share that with you all and, do some deep dives too from a brand perspective on Disneyland. So the one caveat to this episode is that it's just me. It's, 30 to 40 minutes of just Reilly. And if you can endure that, I applaud you. So let's get into this because it's going to be quite the ride. If you do need to pause this episode right now and go take a couple deep breaths outside to prepare yourself for this marathon, you can do that. Go ahead. I won't be offended. Go take a little bit of time, and then when you're ready, you come back to this episode, and I'll be right here waiting for you. But anyways, this episode is going to be more about positioning. As you know, that's kind of my love language is strategy, positioning, game theory, a lot of those things that we apply to the brands we work with. And this actually comes from a side podcast I do where I try to kind of express some of these things and get in the weeds regarding strategy. It's called Thunk, THUNQ. And I only do an episode maybe once a month, if that. But I let these ideas and these thoughts kind of come to a head, and then I kind of purge them into verbal form on that podcast. So this is actually from a recent episode I did that's regarding positioning and my theory on positioning and how we apply that here at Motif Brands to clients of ours, and kind of get into the psychology and even, yourself as a founder, as a marketer, even as a consumer, and how you associate with certain brands, with products, with offerings, and how the brain works in us trying to create meaning and try to derive some type of value of what we see, or maybe a new brand or whatever it could be. So it gets a little in the weeds on all of that. And but I think I do know that you will get value out of it and see kind of the positioning flywheel that I conjured up. And that's actually on our website at motifbrands.com. You can see a visual of that, and I think it'll be very helpful for you as a founder, a marketer, and for your business as a whole, especially going into this new year and going, okay, how are we positioned? How are we framing our business so our brand can be more effective, have some growing room, or even increase our profitability, or start leaning into some of our strengths that make us unique? But first off, a little bit of brand news that I thought was quite remarkable. And this actually goes to Japan for Sony, where Sony bought majority stake in, you're not going to guess what they bought majority stake in, so I'm just going to tell you, Peanuts. They paid about 400 or 500 million for Peanuts. So they now have majority stake of Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and all of that, which is quite remarkable. I believe the Schultz family still retains maybe 20% or so of the IP, but it's very interesting to see these brands start to acquire and kind of gobble up these IPs that are out there. Because again, the Charlie Brown IP, especially since we've been talking about the holidays on these past episodes and nostalgia, it's like Peanuts is that. You look at what Apple TV's done with Peanuts, where every holiday they're pushing whatever Charlie Brown Halloween, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, Charlie Brown Christmas, and I think they have some other ones now too. But it's very powerful. So I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with it. Sony has had some good streaks of luck with their animations due to Spider-Man and some other ones that they have out there. So I'm very curious to see what they do with it. But without further ado, let's jump into this episode about positioning and how it's really going to change your business and help transform it. So right off the bat, a lot of businesses that I consult or that work with us at Motif, they are under the illusion that they have a marketing problem, when really they don't. Usually it's a positioning problem. And positioning is one of my favorite joys in life, because I feel like when it comes to businesses, positioning can be really the thing that makes or breaks a business in its market. So naturally, you might be like, well, what the heck is positioning? Well, let's define it. Positioning, to me, in my Reilly definition of it, I find positioning is really what a business finds its footing in a market that's based off of its strengths. And yes, a business can have a poor positioning, where if you are a heavy-duty brand like Ford or something, where you tout, built Ford tough. You can throw mud in the back, you can throw lumber, you can do construction with the trucks, you can do all kinds of stuff because it's built Ford tough. Their position in the market is all about that high quality, high durability. In the commercials, they're like throwing boulders in the back of these things and they're off-roading and doing all of that. That's a position in the market, because really there's only certain people who are going to buy a truck for those reasons, or they want to be perceived that way, that they might be using the truck for those reasons, which that seems to be the majority. So the problem here is that you can have a poor positioning where they don't back up their position in the market with the quality of the product or how it actually functions. So let's, going with that example of Ford, it's like if they were touting, built Ford tough. And then when you actually do drive the trucks, they are more kind of dinky. They don't really stand up to the test of time or durability issues or quality, all those kinds of things. So the signals they are putting out based off their position of, the messaging, the visuals, doesn't match up with the actual product or the strengths of the business. And this is exactly why positioning is so important, is that it actually does help businesses dig up what their strengths are. And really then taking those strengths and going, okay, this is your distinction in the market. This is what's going to make you unique and stand out and helps you lean into those things. And that's what I see, when I consult a lot of businesses on their positioning, is that sometimes they feel that they have to be selling other services or products that don't align with these strengths. And they're doing it just because the rest of the market actually may have those available options. So they kind of just, fall in suit and go, we'll start offering that too. When it's like, no, that's not actually your strength set. It's kind of like skill stacking, where it's like you want to be able to have all your skills based off of what's already naturally kind of in your DNA, what's part of you. And yes, those things can grow and adapt and change over time, just like Apple has gone from, computers to iPods to iPhone and tablet to now services. Those things do adapt and change over time. However, the positioning of Apple has not changed over time, which is quite remarkable when you think about it. Apple still represents the same kind of position in the market as it has since, the 80s, and even though its product has changed over time. So maybe let's keep Apple in mind while we're going through these examples of red flags if your positioning is poor. If you don't have good positioning, people may be interested, but they're not buying. Or, they might negotiate on pricing. You don't have pricing power. Or maybe even customers, don't understand the value. I know that's a lot of frustration for businesses where they go, but our product is it's top quality. Look at all these methods that we put into it, and, the ingredients or the materials, and the audience doesn't recognize the value in that. That's a problem. Or even internally, you can have teams unsure of what to say. Maybe at a mixer or on social media or even in marketing campaigns and whatnot, there's this kind of lack of going, okay, well, we can follow suit and just kind of say what everyone else is saying, or we can actually have a positioning and go, well, how would our company, whatever, ABC Inc., how would we go about this campaign? What would we say? That changes things. That gives it some teeth. That gives it a little bit of bite. Just like I could say, hey, you know what a Carl's Jr. ad feels like? You do. Or I could say, you know what an Apple commercial feels like? or a Nike commercial. It's because the positioning of those brands is being expressed through not just the story they're telling, but the narrative. The narrative is their little twist on that campaign that brings it so much value and actually aligns that much more with their audience. And yes, this narrative comes straight from the positioning in the market. That's what's really going to be that North Star that tells you, hey, this is how we see things. And that's how you signal to those people, hey, this is how we see the world. I bet you see it similarly, just like Apple did with its classic ad, was this Big Brother, dystopian future. And they put out a huge beacon that was a big, big bet. And I think it cost Steve Jobs, or almost did, his job, because the board didn't want to do it. This risky bet was that narrative going out to the world, and it resonated quite nicely. And here's the kind of non-obvious problem that founders face, and marketing teams, is that they go, well, we're putting out ads, we're marketing, it's just not connecting. It's not a lack of awareness. Sometimes businesses get confused where they think the lack of awareness is their problem. Apple, again, was in that same situation. They were running ads, full page ads. They were doing all kinds of stuff. They weren't nobodies. They were the new kid on the block, but they were still, their name was getting out there. But there was no positioning. There was no narrative, right? So even though they did have the awareness, they were advertising, marketing, doing all the things, yet the positioning lacked. So the positioning never took foot. And so that's a problem that I see a lot of times, is that when you do think of, there's this term that people say is Rolodex moments, which if you don't know what a Rolodex is, it's a bit of a dated term. A Rolodex is what your grandpa used to use to call people, is that they have like this circular, it's like a cylinder thing with a bunch of cards on it, and they'd have names in it, and it'd be organized, I'm pretty sure by last names, or maybe purpose, where they would go, oh, Newman, and they go and flip through it, maybe have a couple notes on there, have my phone number, my fax number, like my beeper or something. If you don't know what a beeper is, look that up. That's a funny little gadget. And so a Rolodex moment is if I say, I'm looking for maybe, a handyman who can help me with plumbing in the next 24 hours or something, right? I need a handyman today. I need a plumber today. A couple names or brands will come to mind in that Rolodex moment. Just like if you're with some friends and, you go, oh man, I'm really hungry. I could go for a nice burger right now. Burger and fries. That is all I'm thinking about. In that moment, you will have a Rolodex moment where you might think of maybe your preferred burger place. And if you listen to the Brandy podcast, you know that I love In-N-Out Burger. So that would be my Rolodex moment. Or even for some people, it might be a local burger place where they go, no, they make the best smash burger or whatever it is. So these Rolodex moments, as antiquated as that term is, it's still very, very viable today. And this is why maybe when people think of saving money in gas, they think of Arco, or they think of whatever gas station they know has cheaper prices and is more value-based. Just like when people think of saving money, they may think of Walmart, Dollar Tree, any of these brands. So these Rolodex moments are based off of the positioning that brand or person takes up in your mind. So if the brand or person doesn't have an opportunity to actually gain a footing in that positioning in someone's mind, it just joins this big kind of bucket of miscellaneous brands that may be kind of categorized or just put in an industry of some sort. There's not actually a footing that makes it stand out or memorable or anything like that. It kind of reminds me that I don't care how organized your house may be, everyone has that junk drawer like in their kitchen. And it's a bit like that, is that when we do meet a new person who has a job maybe we don't understand, or they're new to town, so you're still getting to know them, you kind of put them in this junk drawer. Just like with a brand, it's like, okay, I'm not sure how I feel about that brand. I had an okay experience at that restaurant or whatever it was. You kind of put it in the junk drawer. It may be Italian food, or it may be, some type of other cuisine, but it still just doesn't, if it doesn't have a positioning, it's not going to be placed and that much more recalled in that Rolodex moment. Really need to think of a better term than Rolodex. Maybe like Pokedex. Is that what it's called? Pokedex. So with that being said, that's another point as to why positioning is so darn important, is that it does help the brand not only stand out, but it stands out on its unique factors, on its distinction in the market, which then, as humans, we are always categorizing things. We are always trying to put things in certain categories so we understand and give it meaning. That helps us be able to identify things. So when a brand signals to us, hey, this is why we're different. We are positioned here. We only work with these kinds of people or these types of businesses. We only do this, this, and that. Then our brains automatically go, okay, that's information that I can use to help define and give meaning to this entity. And just like, someone you meet, they are just a name. Yes, they are an individual. And the name they're given and they give you helps you label them and start to create this character. But they are still just an entity. And just like a brand is an entity with a name and a logo / a face, you try to give it meaning. You try to go, oh, person X, Emily means this, or John means this. John's the funny one, right? Or Emily's the very intelligent, sciencey one, or whatever, right? But she has, very dry humor or something, right? You start to create these characters based off of your experience with them. The same thing goes for brands. So when you do meet a brand, it's great when they go, hey, I'm the funny one. I'm the one who has the dry sense of humor, or whatever it is, right? They kind of signal that out and you go, oh, and you help kind of assign them to that proper positioning in your mind. So to that point, this is exactly why you could be spending a lot of money on advertising and marketing, but the framing, the narrative, the positioning is wrong and it's not working. So your conversion is going to be less than stellar on all that marketing and advertising. I would rather someone invest heavily in positioning and getting that dialed in and then throw some money at marketing and advertising and see how their higher conversion rate will actually bring much more profitable returns, not only in the immediate, but actually in the lifetime value of those customers, because they're going to be able to buy into the positioning and therefore the strengths of your business. They already appreciate them. They're already going to be going, hey, this is my type of business. This is my type of product or service, and I align with it, and I'm going to keep coming back. And this is exactly why I walk clients through this little doohickey I made called the Positioning Flywheel. Yes, it sounds complicated, but it's not. Don't worry. I made it rather simple. It's got 7 steps to it. If you're familiar with a flywheel essentially is something that you initially get going, and it builds momentum with time and goes faster and faster and faster, and then it starts peeling off more energy as it's going. A lot of mechanisms use flywheels like engines and whatnot, but a lot of businesses like Amazon have become rather famous for the flywheels they created within their business. So just like how Amazon drives down prices, it's because of them building their subscription. So then as they build more subscription, it gains more awareness and more appeal. So then they can drive down prices more and more and more and more. And then that draws more people, right? So then it creates more of that flywheel effect. The positioning flywheel has 7 parts. And I made this because of my working with a lot of founders, and I wanted to create a framework that helps kind of sum this up into something that's more of a methodology that founders and marketers could look at and understand that the framing, the positioning is the center point of the brand, of the positioning, of the strategy. And first off, the first step in the positioning flywheel is association. And this is kind of that initial step of, like I said, when someone first meets you or you first interact with a brand, what's that immediate association that you're connecting with them of going, oh, like I said, oh, John's the funny one, or that brand it's very serious, or it's very elegant. It's a luxury brand, right? So that signal, that immediate association, this will help people kind of mentally tag you in a way where they go, okay, assign a couple of these descriptors to assist in the meaning of this entity, this thing that I'm getting to know. Then, following that first step of association, you get alignment. Does this tag match what they want, right? Does this align with how I see the world, Does it align with my life in this current moment, in this stage of my life, or even like I talk about on the Brandy podcast is modes and different scenarios I might be in. Just like when you're hungry, you're in the mode to go find food. You're in the mode to eat. So you're looking for restaurants or you're looking for groceries. You're not always in that mode. So it's different. So first association, then we look at the alignment. We kind of judge that and go, okay, this either does align or it does not align. That third step is going to be relation. So early emotional resonance. How much does this actually relate? What's the relation that it has with me, who I am, my internal narrative, how I see the world, my POV, point of view and perspective, even beliefs, right? Beliefs, political beliefs, leanings in any way. There's a lot of things to consider on that point. And so as we are gauging these brands and defining them and giving them meaning, this is all part of that, where we're kind of building that in. Then that does help us get to step 4. So we've done associations, alignment, relation, and then this goes into fit. Does the brand feel right to them? And again, I said feel right. This is a lot different than if something is actually the logical, rational solution for someone's needs. And a lot of founders, they'll think that where they go, yeah, we are the obvious choice. And yet, a lot of purchase decisions are not rational. They are not logical. So you got to find how you fit their life, how you align with them, how you relate to them. And that fit is then a feeling. Just like when you meet someone, you go, oh, I can feel this fit in our relationship. We get each other, right? And it could be you guys laugh at the same jokes or whatever it is. You kind of have this fit. After that, then someone goes on to perceived affordance. Do they believe it will work for them? Are they able to not only financially afford this thing, but the perception of the affordance? Can they afford to actually move forward with this? Is it going to work for them on many levels? And then we move on to kinship. And this is more than just having a relationship. This is actually when, kind of like when a friend becomes a closer friend or a best friend, is that you do start to have this kinship. You have, you're akin, you're of the same mindset, you're of the same circle. So this is where you start to identify more with a brand. You go, okay, this is identity level bonding where you identify with, oh, I'm an Apple user, or I play on the PlayStation instead of an Xbox, or I drink this drink instead of that drink. You start to create this because it aligns with your internal narrative and who you are, and it actually reinforces your identity and how you want to be perceived, either by, outside people or internally, how you want to see yourself. Is that I'm this type of person and this is what that person does. Whether that's, oh, I eat healthy, or yeah, I do go and work out in the mornings and I drive this kind of car or whatever. So it kind of aligns with many of those things that we've talked about in the previous steps. And then finally, this brings us to relation. This is really deep. And this overall kind of loop that makes the brand part of their life is that going from association, alignment, relation in step 3, then we go to fit, perceived affordance, kinship, and then we're looping back around to relation, because really then we almost reevaluate that relation after we've gone and go, okay, yeah, this brand does kind of represent who I am and what I believe. And you kind of start to have that kinship, like we were talking about, where it's aligning with the identity. Then it comes back down to that relationship. So then this positioning of the brand, of the company, is reevaluated based off of the experience it's had thus far. And so that's why positioning is this ongoing evaluation process. So just as a positioning could lose steam over time if you're not continually working on it and you just kind of put it out there and then don't reinforce it with signaling, with messaging, with product design, with service quality, any of that, customer service, you start to have seepage of that positioning where someone goes, that's not really what it was. It doesn't align with me anymore, or it just doesn't fit. So then it starts to be kind of depositioned, right? And it starts to go, that's not my either preference, or it just doesn't align with me anymore. So I don't think about it. I don't have that Rolodex moment. So with this flywheel, it is an ongoing as a company, as a founder, as a marketing team, it's an ongoing effort to make sure that that positioning is always kind of compounding, because someone is going to loop back around after they start to kind of connect on the identity level, on that deeper level. Then they're going to come back around to the relation level and reevaluate things and go, okay, well, is this brand still, or they might have had another transaction with you or done an event at your company thing or whatever, and they start to reevaluate what it means to them. It's not just a moment. Positioning isn't just a moment. It's a cycle. And the better your positioning, the more momentum your brand compounds just over time, because someone knows, X equals Y, and they keep hitting that. So going back to really the strategy of this is that the positioning, that is part of your strategy. That kind of is your strategy in a lot of ways, where that's going to give you a lot of guidance on going, okay, this is the lay of the land. This is our market. Here's our competition. Here's emerging competition. Here's the, old guards. How do we maneuver this battlefield and approach maybe these little battles or economic conditions or just the market as a whole in a different, more intriguing way, or just more effective in a lot of ways? It kind of reminds me of like the Trojan horse, where that was a, completely unorthodox way to commence in battle. It was using disguise. It was using trickery and doing all these things that really wasn't part of the gameplay, the game plan back then. And similar is that, you think of the redcoats, where during like the Civil War and stuff, people line up and shoot and take turns shooting and all of that. And then you suddenly had kind of more guerrilla tactics come out, where they started changing warfare. The same thing happens in markets, where, we saw it in 2020, where you had typical markets be disrupted by direct-to-consumer brands that just kind of cropped up out of nowhere, and they started selling all kinds of things directly to the consumer. And that cut out middlemen. Some survived, some died, and it just kind of is that they position themselves in the market in a distinct way that leaned into strengths that kind of outmaneuvered these other options in the market. And this isn't saying that every positioning needs to be something that's just like, wow, it's never been done before. This is completely new for an industry or market. It could be something as simple as limiting, the amount of products that you offer, or your menu as a restaurant, or anything where it's just kind of, you're making a statement by doing those things, and you're signaling to your audience as, hey, this is who we are, and this is what we do very, very, very well. And we pursue excellence in these things. And that's a signal to those, to those buyers, especially when your product or service aligns with what they're looking for. So the big mistakes in positioning are always when people try to be something for everyone, because that's like that's the polar opposite of positioning, is if you're just everything for everyone. The only way you can justify that is if you're doing if you're chasing value economic buyers, which Amazon, Walmart, that's what they do. So they can literally be, hey, we sell everything for everyone. And it's because that mass market approach is the only way to drive down those costs and actually make it worthwhile. But that's why both of those brands are the biggest retailers in the world. So you're not Amazon, you're not Walmart. So don't play their game, because your game is different. And you got to realize that for each business, no matter your size, you have a certain game, and there's certain rules to the game you're playing. And it's up to you to go, okay, which rules do I abide by and which rules do I break? At what point do you make up your own rules? And you go, no, I'm rewriting these rules a little. But they have to lean into your strengths. If you're able to rewrite rules of a game that leans into who you are as a company, that's the winning ticket. Because then the rest of the market, they either can't follow those rules, or they're going to pay a big price trying to play by the new rules that you're making up. So keep that in mind. And another fatal positioning mistake is really when they get so focused on what they are doing. And there's a famous quote, I forgot who said it, but it's not what you do, but how you do it. And this is proven over and over in so many companies where they may approach the same market, but they just do it slightly different. It has nothing to do with what they're actually selling or anything like that. And, again, kind of embedded inside of all of this is that major why, which I know is an overused term now, thanks to Simon Sinek and a lot of thought leaders in business. But there is still some validity to having that why that is then interwoven throughout the company, throughout your positioning, throughout your strategy. When this is, no, we're going to approach this campaign this way because this is why, right? This is why we're in business. This is why we're doing this. We're not just following the crowd. Our positioning is this, and that's our why. And of course, this aligns perfectly with a brand like Apple that stuck to its why throughout decades and decades, and the how and even the what have evolved. First, the what did evolve. They weren't always about the what. Like I said, they went from computers to iPods to iPhones and tablets, and now services, which now the services are almost a how change, right? They're changing from products to services and Apple TV and all these kinds of things that are evolving. And there's plenty of other great examples of brands that have really done this well. And kind of another mistake I see with a lot of companies is that they focus more on the competition than on their category or specific positioning. So they lose kind of faith in the positioning they're going after, which is based off of their unique strengths for their unique game they're playing. And they focus too much on the competition, which, like I said, you could have competitors in the same market who are playing a totally different game than you. And so it doesn't make sense for you to follow what they're doing or do something just because you saw them do it on social media or anything like that. And, we talk about this a lot on the Brandy podcast of on the marketing side. So if you want to learn more about that, you should check out the Brandy podcast. If you just type Brandy in any podcast player, it'll come up. And the real kicker here is that positioning isn't about just standing out for the sake of standing out and doing something outrageous or just being off the wall. That's kind of more just tactical and marketing, what you see, like for Super Bowl ads and things like that, which to me, that's not positioning. Yeah, you can put out a funny ad or do something that shows a side of the brand's personality, or it might be part of your strategy to get awareness. But the positioning really just comes down to framing things differently. It's about reframing maybe how you sell or what you're selling, or even how your audience views a product or service. Or it's about changing how those things are purchased, how they're bundled, how they are either fractionalized, or how they are actually consumed. We've seen this with subscription models and memberships. That has changed a lot of businesses where you went from, maybe a yearly transaction to then membership and subscriptions where someone pays monthly. So it's obvious to see that the strategy when it comes to positioning it's not just a marketing issue. It's actually a full business model. It changes how you view the customer, how you interact with the customer, how you engage, how you transact, and then even how you then signal that, aka marketing, how you raise awareness about that. But it fuels that. It gives, that footing for the marketing to actually be able to say something that matters to someone so that they actually care. And I feel like that's part of it too, is that brand positioning strategy, these things get lumped in with the marketing side of things. And I think it's just because on a balance sheet, someone assigns these expenses to marketing. And to me, that's a big, big error, because the strategy, the positioning, it's what makes the marketing matter. Marketing is like the megaphone that raises the volume and pushes out the message. But positioning is what actually makes people care about what you're saying. They make people care about what you're doing. And without that, you're just raising a lot of noise. Like you're just creating white noise to join in the choir of the rest of your market, instead of actually going, no, our positioning is this, our strategy is this, and this is how we are going to market that. Because now you actually know who you're marketing to. you haven't defined the market until you have that strategy and that positioning. And that's going to give you much more effective return on your efforts and just overall conversion on not only those immediate people kind of going, oh, wow, that connects with me, that resonates, right? It means something to them. They actually care. Is that then those people who actually do care are willing to pay. They appreciate what you're doing, and they appreciate paying you to do it. They want to pay you to do it because they align. They actually care, and it's resonating with them. And without that positioning, the strategy, you don't have a strategy because you're not going about it based off of your strengths as a business, what makes you distinct, and really what's going to make you powerful. Those are the points of leverage that are going to help your business grow, but actually grow profitably because you're actually going to be leaning into the people who actually want those things. You're not just broadcasting it out to the entire world. Because at the end of the day, whether you are a founder and you're handling all the day-to-day, or you're a marketer working for a company, the business really has these two realities. The one you operate in on the inside, and then the one customers perceive. And your job as the strategist is to help frame that perception, to help kind of bridge that gap between these two worlds so that the positioning is interwoven through the internal narrative, the operations of the business, and then it actually bleeds into the marketing, into that helping the audience reframe how they view your company. And again, should they care? Should they not care? And what they're going to do about it. That's how it's done. And that's why strategy and positioning are so important. So if you want to learn more about positioning, I have a lot of information on that on my website, but also the Positioning Flywheel. I'm going to put a link in the episode notes where you can go and actually look at a visual of the Positioning Flywheel and see the 7 kind of steps that it takes along the way. So you can visually follow along, because I know it's a lot. I know this isn't basic math. This is a little more advanced, but I promise you it helps. And I promise you it will help your business and really help give that, it sharpens the tip of the spear. It gives it a little more edge, and helps you really have that clarity of going, okay, this is who we are, and this is how we approach these different kind of business activities that we have to do, whether it is marketing, whether it is internal, whether it is company culture, or anything like that. So to wrap things up, thank you so much for listening and staying with me this entire episode. You endured the entire thing, and I applaud you once again for that. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know in the Spotify comments, or you can email me directly, or just leave a nice, very flattering review on Apple or Spotify, and that would make our day. And next week, we will be back with a normal Brandy episode just for you, so please feel free to tune in. And if you know someone who would get value out of this episode, maybe a founder, a marketer, please share it with them. That helps us. Again, we don't do any ads or sponsors on this. We just get the information out there to help founders and marketers just like you to help improve their businesses and grow their success. Until next time, cheers.